my office, and I've got to go to Lancaster that day. I used to sell holidays, especially for cruises, that were sold in the newspapers.
Yes.
That was my speciality, up and down the country. And it just so happened that that Monday I was due in Lancaster to get the biggest sales in that particular newspaper. So I'm driving up the M6, and here's my second prayer. Okay, Lord, I really need this job today. It's going to look really good on my CV. Can we get it done? You know, will you help me? That was my prayer. So I drove up the motorway, went in, spoke like a lawyer, got the deal, signed, done. Whew, that was good. So I came out of the offices there, and I walked into a bookshop next door, and I thought, I'll get myself a Bible.
Okay.
Because I haven't got one.
Right.
You know, and they all seem to have these Bibles. And she says, okay, what do you want? NIV, good news? I don't know, I just want the Bible. I want one with pictures in. So she gave me a good news. And it was that thick, and I thought, wow.
How am I going to ever finish that?
Exactly. So I've put that on the seat next to me, and I set off down the M6 back home. And I'm driving along, and I'm thinking, I deserve to be a Christian. I'm glad that happened to me last night. You know, I've always been a good person, really. I've always taken my clothes to the charity shop. I've always let people stay in my house. I've always, you know, fed people. I deserve to be a Christian. And as I said that, it was like a darkness came over me.
Wow.
So much that I had to pull onto the hard shoulder. And again, this like fear. And so I looked at this Bible, and I flipped it open. And I had lovely long red nails at the time. And my nail was pointing, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
Wow.
And then I closed it and tried to find it again.
You couldn't?
And I couldn't. But I remembered it. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And on the rest of the journey home to Blackpool that day, God started to show me the things that he considered were sinful things. Not so much like murdering or stealing, but things in my heart towards people.
Yes.
I'd had many people in my life that had misused me, abused me, and people that I didn't trust or had hurt me badly. And God was showing me these people, and he was actually asking me to say, I forgive them. And I thought, how can I? Do I have to? And then I started to realise that prayer that I'd said the night before, I didn't understand the gospel, that Jesus forgave me, because I thought I had nothing to be forgiven of.
Right.
But here God was showing me that I needed to forgive other people, and yet he was also showing me that in my life he was also forgiving me. In fact, that night he'd forgiven me everything. And so my journey home was quite emotional. And by the time I'd got home from being in Lancaster, I felt different again. I felt even more cleaner, even more released. And there was a string of people that I'd managed to say, Lord, I'm trying to forgive them. In fact, Lord, I'm going to say I forgive them, and I'm going to hope that you help me do that. And then over the next weeks and months, that did happen.
Wow. Now, I find that really, really interesting, because you're a pastor's wife, I'm a pastor's wife, and often when new people come into the church, we tend to really sort of baby them, you know, and we've got to show them A and B and C, and this next step and this next step. It's almost like we don't trust God to be able to do that.
Yes.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't do education for new Christians, but it's just amazing that God is able to do the work himself.
It is amazing. And for a long time, I didn't grasp that everyone didn't get saved the way I got saved. The night that I gave my life to Jesus was the last time I ever touched drugs. It was actually the last time I ever swore. It was the last time I smoked. It was the last time I did a lot of things. Or God took those things away from me instantly.
Wow.
I never touched drugs or anything ever again from that night. And I didn't even struggle with those things. But yet there was other things going on in my life that perhaps took a lot longer, perhaps unseen things. But those outward things, they went straight away. And for a long time, I expected everyone to get saved like that. And when it didn't happen, I thought, well, they can't be saved. So there was that I had to learn. I had to learn that God is patient, and God treats us all in different ways. He knows exactly what fits us. Maybe that's the way I'd say I got radically born again that night. Maybe I was on the edge of something, I don't know. But it was the same for my husband the week before. That's why it was he was so changed, so dramatically different. That's why I wanted the old Jason back.
Right.
So I changed dramatically that night.
Mm-hmm. So how did that affect and impact on your relationship together?
Well, quite a lot really, because we'd had 12 months of going out with each other. We had a relationship. We were in an active relationship for 12 months, but now we were Christians. Mm-hmm. So even though we were just a week old as Christians, so we started to go to church. We went every Sunday, and every day God was speaking to us and showing us things. It was so fast that we got to know this God. It wasn't a slow, drawn out relationship. This relationship was building fast every single day, every single moment. We were excited, we were reading the Bible, we were hungry for the things of God, we were filled with the Holy Spirit and speaking in tongues. So I first gave my life to Jesus, and I think it was March the 25th, 1990. Mm. And then one night, Jason had gone back. He lived in a trailer because he's got a gypsy background. He went back to his trailer one night, and he had this, he now knows it was a vision, mm-hmm. and he saw me in church praising God, and God had told him that to take me, that's why he took me on the Sunday. But also, he had a pain. He didn't know it was a pain in his heart, that he was in love with me, you see.
Okay.
And he was saying, Lord, take this pain away. And God actually woke him up and said, get married. Son, get married. So he came to speak to me, and of course, I don't want to get married. I don't need a husband. But just in such a short time, I got saved in March the 25th, mm-hmm. and we got baptised at the end of April, mm-hmm. and a few days later we got married on the 2nd of May.
Wow, that
Within
was quick.
6 weeks of being saved, we were married.
So instantly. Wow.
And I didn't realise the impact that it would have on my little boy. Mm-hmm. He was about 3 at the time. And because I was privileged, I could go abroad a lot, I'd take him away with me as a single mum before I was a Christian, and he'd watch the families, and he'd go for the dad, and he'd jump on the dad and play with him, because the other kids did, but he didn't understand it wasn't his dad.
Yeah.
And so they often shooed him away. And on the day we got married, he was watching intently as we signed the register, and the moment we signed the register that we were married, he jumped up into Jason's arms and said, Daddy.
Oh, wow.
So, God was concerned about my son mm-hmm. having a father figure
and
around
he was
his
concerned
life.
About you.
And he was concerned about me.
And he was concerned about Jason, because before, you said that you were, busy living your life, you were getting on with it, you were going somewhere, but you really didn't have a destination in mind.
No.
Because you didn't even know who you were or what your purpose in life was. But now God steps in, and suddenly everything changes.
Yes.
Well, just let me remind the viewers that we're looking forward for your text and your emails. Please feel free to join in. I hope that you're enjoying Linda's story today. So, Linda, now you're married.
Yes.
What happens with the rest of the family?
Well, I'll just backtrack a little bit. Before I was a Christian, and when I was going out to the nightclub and so forth, I would walk home sometimes along the streets, and I'd see the glow in the windows. When you walk down a dark street and you see all the houses and mm-hmm. the curtains are drawn, and the lights are on inside. And inside that room, there are people, and they're doing family, they're doing life together. And I had a longing to be part of that, but I was denying that truth to myself. I would never admit that. I thought I was enjoying living life in the fast lane. And when we married, I heard God speak to me, and he said, I set the lonely into family. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for years later that I actually found it in the Bible in Psalm 68. God sets the lonely into family. Yeah. And there I now was set into a family of my own. And yet I didn't know that was a desire of my heart. I wasn't honest to myself. Wow. I was getting through life, and on the face of it, it looked like I had everything. I had the fast car, I had the 4-bedroom house, I had the great job to be envied, I had the beautiful little boy. I had everything that on the outside people would want. But on the inside, which I denied also to my own knowledge, my deep desire was to be part of a family.
Wow. So had you had a family when you were younger? Did you grow up in a family home? Yes,
I grew up in a family home, and I left home at quite a young age, really, 16. And so I'd had a long time being on my own. And then, of course, with a short marriage that ended up broken, things didn't seem to work for me. And I just wanted this, but it's intriguing that I denied that knowledge to myself. I was just ploughing through life.
But how many of us do that?
Yeah.
Other people can often see what our needs are,
and we can't see
it
them
ourselves.
But the great thing is that God saw it. And where God says, I will give you the desires of your heart, sometimes we're blind to the desires of our heart. But God is never blind to the desires of our heart.
Never. And I always call him a need-meeting God.
Oh, definitely.
So if you have a need,
yes,
he's going to meet it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we settled down to family life, and later on we have Rebecca, and that we've got 3 children altogether now. And within a few months of going to the church, we started helping out at the church. I became the treasurer and the secretary, and Jason was helping the pastor and on the pastoral team there. And one day I came home from work, and he said to me, this is how naive our faith was at the time, or how strong off, I don't know how you say, but I came in through the door, and before I could get my coat off, he said, go upstairs now and pray and ask God what he's told me. Okay. So I went upstairs, and as soon as I went into the bedroom, God spoke to me and told me what it was that he'd just told Jason. But I thought, I'll let him wait a while, you know, make it worthwhile. It's too quick. So eventually I came down, and he said, what did God tell you? And I said, he's told you that we need to go to Bible college. And his face went pale. The blood drained from his face. He said, yes, that's what God was telling me.
Wow.
Now, if you can understand, Jason wasn't particularly educated because of the gypsy culture. And so in fact, at that point, he'd never read a book. The only book that he'd ever read was the Bible, and he'd only read that since he got saved. And there was God saying that he's got to go to Bible college. He didn't want to be a pastor. He was frightened to death of going to Bible college. But this thing would not go away. And so we went into church later that day, and one of the elders just turned to him out of the blue and said, had you ever thought of going to Bible college? And then we went further along, and then someone else turned to him and said, you know, you'd make a good pastor. And so with all that confirmation, we decided that we'd put these steps in operation, and we went to Bible college. So we had to pack up our house. And
so you packed up your job as well, everything, went full-time?
Everything. Now, when Jason became a Christian, he had a joke shop in Blackpool.
A joke shop?
A joke shop. The joke shops in Blackpool are not really ideal for Christians. So he walked away from his business when he got saved because it wasn't honouring to God.
Yes.
And he worked voluntary at the church. And then I gave my job up and worked voluntary at the church. And then as we were getting ready to go to Bible college, we put our house on the market, and it didn't sell. And there were 7 days to go, and the college rang, and they said, we really need your money if you're coming. So we prayed and we fasted, and there was a knock at the door. 7 days to go, and a gentleman that we knew came in, and he said, God's told me to give you £6,000 to pay for your first year at Bible college. So we wouldn't take it. We said, we'll pay you back then. That's the only way we'll take it. And so within a couple of hours, the car was packed. And I thought, what are we going to do about the house? It didn't sell. And I just needed to nip to the shop to say we were going. And when I went there, I saw a friend I hadn't seen for years, and she was crying. And I said, what's the matter? She said, I've just been thrown out of my house.
Oh, wow.
And I've got these 2 children. Go and move into my house. And within a few hours, we had the money to go to Bible college, and we had someone live in our house. And we went to Bible college for 3 years at Nantwich, Elim Bible College. And God provided every step of the way. It wasn't like today where you get the grants or you get student loans.
And things, yeah.
And being Blackpool wouldn't give you anything if you were going into a theological college.
Right.
Maybe if you were going to do something for gay rights or something like that. Yes, but nothing. So we lived those 3 years off faith, and God never let us down. We had to adjust the way we lived for a little while.
Yes.
But God never failed us. And that was a great learning curve.
Wow. But even at this stage, are you thinking, oh, I'm going to be a pastor's wife?
Oh, no.
So what was going through your head?
Well, the first thing Jason said to me was, before we go to Bible college, you'll have to cut your hair. Because it was right down there.
Okay.
And I thought, I'm not cutting my hair. But
so was that one of the rules?
No. It's just our interpretation of what Bible college looks like, what Christians look like.
Okay.
And for a little while, I tried hard to, I'd already changed my dress, which was, I'd say naturally, but supernaturally, without even thinking about